the standings may say in a given year. It's one of baseball's great rivalries. And it's next on NBC.
National Broadcasting Company, now in its 6th decade of bringing you baseball's memories. Baseball's milestones. Baseball's majesty. And baseball's magical moments. NBC Sports proudly presents the Major League Baseball Game of the Week. Today from Busch Memorial Stadium, it's the Chicago Cubs versus the St. Louis Cardinals. The Game of the Week is brought to you by Ford and your local Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Miller Lite. For great taste, there is only one light beer. By United States Liberty Coins. Keep Liberty in mint condition with United States Liberty Coins. And by Sears. Come celebrate Sears' new century. See all the ways we've changed and all the ways we haven't.
It is a typical June day at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, which is to say it's like walking into a sauna. John Tudor will pitch for the Cards, Rick Sutcliffe for the Cubs. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas with Tony Kubek. Now, it's true, these clubs have been very disappointing for their fans, but there are two legitimate positives. The Cubs and Cardinals remain one of baseball's most exciting rivalries. We'll have a big crowd today, and Tudor and Sutcliffe is a pretty darn good pitching matchup.
It's the best pitching matchups in the major leagues today, with Lee Wire behind home plate, Bob, an umpire that has a nice strike zone that pitchers like. It could be a crisp game. I think the perplexing thing, though, is Whitey Herzog can't figure it out. Anybody around this area, how so many good ball players from the Cardinals can play so poorly. When you've got Willie McGee hitting what he's hitting with just 6 stolen bases, Tommy Hirsch struggling with the bat at times in the field, Jack Clark can't drive in runs. You've got all kinds of problems. Pendleton at third base, 3 men on the disabled list for Whitey Herzog pitching, which hurts his Miller relief. Nobody can seem to figure out how this team could go so poorly with all that talent. The Cubs and Jimmy Fry are just trying to get a chemistry in the lineup, now an artificial surface. You don't know whether to play an offensive team or defensive team. And yesterday, a very volatile situation when young Sean Dunston, a fine-looking shortstop in his first full year, is finding out what this Cardinal-Cubs rivalry is. A pitch that nipped him a little bit from Barger. He charged the mound in a near violent situation like the Celtics and the Houston Rockets.
9-3 last night. The Cubs over the Cardinals. 4 home runs for the Cubs, 2 of them by Chris Spire. Matthews and Durham also connected. We'll tell you more about Tudor, Sutcliffe, Cards, and Cubs when we come back.
I'm Keith Moreland, and welcome to NBC's Game of the Week. I'm going to give you the lineup for the Jim Fry's Chicago Cubs. Leading off at shortstop is Sean Dunston. One of the best young players in the league right now, is rising to be a great star. Batting second is the Sarge, Gary Matthews. He plays left field. Batting third is Ryan Sandberg. Rhino is MVP 2 years ago and has had 2 real good years since then. Is swinging about real well right now. Batting fourth is myself, Keith Moreland. I'll play right field. Batting fifth at first base, the Bull, Leon Durham. He's been swinging the bat pretty well lately, hit a home run last night. Batting sixth is Chris Spire, third base. Hadn't got many starts this year, got a start last night and hit 2 home runs for us. Batting seventh is Jody Davis. He's having an all-star year. He's throwing out a lot of runners and hit some home runs and drove in a lot of runs. And batting eighth is Bob Denier. He's the center fielder, and he can go get them with the best of them. And batting ninth is the pitcher Rick Sutcliffe. He had a bad start, but he's won his 4 last decisions. He's throwing the ball pretty well right now, and we need to go get him.
Last night, the Mets split a doubleheader at Pittsburgh. Ron Darling was beaten in the first game, but Rick Aguilera came back, hit a home run to help himself, and won the nightcap. They are now 8 in front of Montreal. The Expos rallied from an 8-2 deficit and beat the Phillies 10-9. And here we find the Cardinals and the Cubs, the last 2 division winners in the NL East. The Cards in the basement, 14 back, and just a half game in front of them, the Pirates and Cubs.
I guess second place is up for grabs because for all intents and purposes, it appears at this time that the Eastern Division may be over with. Last night at the ball game, when the Cubs beat the Cardinals, Sean Dunston came up to the plate. Greg Barger on the mound. He was the third pitcher for the Cardinals, and Sean Dunston lost his cool like Ralph Sampson did in the Rockets against Larry Bird and the Celtics. Watch this pitch. It's 2 balls, 2 strikes. The ball gets part of it look like the shoulder. Gary Darling, first ball game behind home plate, did an outstanding job trying to prevent this altercation, but Sean Dunston wouldn't quit. He just kept coming back and coming back. Tito Landrum, a peacemaker. No real blows landed, but both benches, both bullpens out in the field, and Dunston just wouldn't quit. He was ejected from the ball game, and he's going to lead this game off today.
There was some talk about the possibility that Barger and Dunston might have a history dating back to AAA ball. They had faced one another, and Barger does have a reputation for throwing inside and had problems with Dunston teammates at Iowa. But Dunston says he himself had never had an altercation with Barger before last night.
It wasn't like the pitch was behind his head or at his head, and he just lost his cool, even though they won, perhaps showing the frustration of the Cubs thus far. Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, Andy Van Slyke, an outstanding outfielder. McGee maybe getting a little timid from that wall now, playing very deeply. Pendleton with an outstanding defensive season thus far at third. The Wizard, Ozzie Smith. Tommy Herr struggling. Jack Clark. Lavalier, if you're in Montreal. How does he like it here in St. Louis?
Lavalier will suffice.
All right. Mike Lavalier.
And John Tudor on the mound with a record of 5-3, an ERA of 2.71. Last year, of course, 21-8, following a 1-7 start and a season good enough in most years to win the Cy Young. He had the misfortune of pitching in the same league with Dwight Gooden, so he settled for second place in the balloting. Tudor is 32 years old. Came over from the Pirates a year ago in the deal that sent George Hendrick to Pittsburgh.
He does have a slider, but there were games last year when he was in that red-hot streak leading this staff, Whitey Herzog, that he didn't even throw the slider. He just went fastball and changeup. That's how great his control was last year.
And you hear the reception for Dunston. A lot of Cub fans here, though. That's always the case. Cardinal rooters head for Wrigley when they play in the other place. Strike one, says Lee Wire.
And that's a tip-off right there. Lee Wire with Tudor's control. If he gives them that outside corner and down, looks close to being a full house, not quite. A lot of these tickets were sold over the winter time. People from East St. Louis, Cubs fan, Chicago area.
There was a downpour about 45 minutes ago. It was really raining heavily. Stopped quickly, and on artificial surface, they're able to start the game on time. A ball and 2 strikes.
That's what Tudor does so well. And he had to learn to do that pitching in Fenway Park, Boston, with that short left field wall. Run the fastball away, sink it, get him leaning over the plate, cut the fastball in on the fists, and break bats.
This one is popped back, and Lavalier has no chance. Tudor has had an excellent history the past year and a half against the Cubs. 5-1 lifetime against them. ERA less than a run and a half a game.
One of the reasons Whitey Herzog got him not just to have a left-hander. He's got great control, but he knows at the left side of the diamond, when the lineup is stacked with right-handed hitters, as it is by the Cubs today, Ozzie and Pendleton would catch everything in sight. A lot of ground balls to the left side.
On the inside corner, a call, 3rd strike.
It's interesting. I would think that Lee Wire and the umpiring crew got a little bit upset with Dunston last night when he really initiated the little mini brawl last night. And I think sometimes the umpire, when that guy comes up, will say, okay, you got us in hot water last night. We did a good job trying to break it up. You better be wailing, baby. He punched him out.
Matthews had an opposite field home run last night. Up high to him on the bases with Wire working behind the plate. Dutch Rennert at first, Ed Montague at second, and rookie umpire Gary Darling at third. That's out of play. Darling is the guy in quite a test. His first game ever behind home plate in the major leagues, just up from the Pacific Coast League. He had to collar Dunston when he headed for the mound in the 9th with fire in his eyes. The 1-1. 2-1.
He does so many things with his fastball. Sinks it, runs it, cuts it, rides it. Throw low 3/4 sidearm. There's a little changeup. So what you're talking about, he's basically got 5 or 6 different pitches, and then he changes the arm angle a little bit, so you double that. You're seeing it from a different direction. And marvelous control of it usually.
now to Matthews. Tudor generally works at a brisk pace. He gets the ball back and goes to work pretty quickly. And here comes the 3-2. In the air to right field, Van Slyke. He made a terrific catch against the wall last night on a Durham drive, and he takes this one.
Well, just kept drifting back. Anything hit high, there's a wind blowing almost straight out to right field.
Batting third, number 23.
Not much of a wind factor, though, in this ballpark. Completely enclosed. It's a beautiful ballpark. This in Kansas City, about, what, 240 miles away. Two of the best artificial surfaces. Great place to see ball games. They're not really sterile like a lot of those new parks.
As new ballparks go, one of the better ones, no doubt. It has a little bit of feeling and atmosphere. Some individuality, at least. Strike one to Sandberg. This place was like a furnace before the rainfall of about 45 minutes ago, and that has cooled it off at least a little bit. It's popped up. Pendleton shades his eyes, moves toward the mound, and has it. A 1-2-3 first for Tudor. No score after half an inning, and we'll be back to Busch Stadium. Here's the lineup. Rick Sutcliffe prepares to face Coleman, McGee, Van Slyke, Clark, Herr, LaValliere, Smith, Pendleton, and Tudor. Coleman had 2 of the 5 Cardinal hits last night, and he also stole a couple of bases.
Looking at 5 switch hitters in the lineup for Whitey Herzog's Cardinals. Might have been 6, except John Tudor has stopped switch hitting. Whitey also has Oquendo and White switch hitters on the bench.
Ball one high. Jody Davis also threw Vince Coleman out trying to steal once last night. Coleman's 33 thefts lead the National League. Ricky Henderson of the Yanks leads the majors with 37. 1-1.
Rick Sutcliffe has pitched well his last few outings. ERA has come down considerably. Billy Connors, the pitching coach, said trying to protect the shoulder injury that he had last year, he started short-arming the ball. Wasn't getting extension. His velocity went up like from 83 into the low 90s his last few starts.
As an exercise, Connors had him standing at the shortstop position and throwing across to first base, trying to get full extension. And when he got that nice, easy, fluid motion going, as you say, the fastball really came back.
Old George Bamberger trick. Talking about his shortstop having to have the perfect delivery, yet his pitchers watch them all the time. This guy's really been playing good baseball. Vince Coleman, both defensively and with the bat.
Sutcliffe couldn't handle it, and it's through the middle. It may have just grazed Rick's glove, and now Coleman is aboard and anxious to run.
And Whitey Herzog yesterday, the turf is slick. Bob told you about the rain, a fastball up, and the turf a little slicker than Rick Sutcliffe gave it credit for, and the ball skids off the edge of his glove. The man you don't want on. Yesterday, when Guy Hoffman was on the mound, the left-hander, Whitey Herzog was off like a shot, talking to Darling, the home plate umpire, about everybody balking. In fact, Whitey says he doesn't know how Coleman has stolen as many bases as he has thus far, with the guys trying all the trick moves and not stopping.
When you make a list of Cardinal problems, very near the top, the production or non-production of Willie McGee at 246 after leading the league and winning the MVP award with a 353 performance last year. Whoa, close. They got him.
Dutch Rennert. This is an outstanding umpiring crew. Dutch Rennert was right there. Sutcliffe trained in the Dodger organization, where they have taught for many years the best methods of holding runners on. A great tag by Leon Durham. One of the little subtleties, advantages of having a left-hander at first base. The tag is a little quicker. He's been playing great defensively. He must have saved Sean Dunston 2 or 3 errors in the first 2 ball games in this thing.
1-0 pitch coming to Willie McGee. 1-1. McGee is a .308 lifetime hitter. As I said, he hit .353 last year.
see on that swing, on batting practice, Johnny Lewis, the hitting instructor, threw early to him yesterday, the day before. They spread his stance out. They say he is lunging, getting all the weight past his front foot, his right foot. He settles down, uses his hands and batting practice. As soon as the game starts, he starts jumping and lunging at the ball.
2-2. Just another indication. Willie went 152 at-bats this year before he got his first extra base hit.
This from a guy who was one of the best players in the game last year, all around.
Now, he's not a home run hitter. He hit 10 homers last year, but he led the league with 18 triples and had 26 doubles, so that's a lot of extra base hits, and the pop had all but disappeared in the early portions of this season. Payoff pitch.
Well, you wonder, is the price that people have to pay for success this year and having to repeat just destroyed some teams? It's hard to figure out. I mean, you look at Toronto, they've struggled. Detroit a couple of years ago. Cincinnati had a good year last year, and it goes on and on. But guys want to push themselves enough and go through the pressure and the strain of having to give so much of themselves 2 years in a row.
You know, I still think the Cardinals will win more than they lose this year, even though they're 8 under 500 now. They might come close to 90 wins. I think they'll finish second, but obviously they've dug themselves too deep a hole. The Mets are just an excellent team. You can't spot them 14 games.
It is a big strike zone for Lee Wire. The players already know it. Lee Wire has established that, and they better go up hacking. And the two catchers, Davis and LaValliere, know it already. Two veteran pitchers with great control, and they will just keep the ball out of the strike zone as long as Lee Wire keeps giving it to them. A little bit like Ed Runge, who's in the American League. His son Paul now in the National League. And you knew with Ed Runge, you better go up there hacking. Lee Wire's a little bit the same.
And you don't mind if you know, if it's consistent and you have an idea of what you have to do.
Where a hitter really gets hurt, though, is when you got two pitchers with the kinds of control. Well, Sutcliffe's been off a little bit this year, but Sutcliffe and Tudor, they're not going to throw you the ball on the outer edge of the plate. They're going to throw it 6 inches outside as long as they get it. They're going to stay there.
2-0 to Van Slyke. Coleman opened by bouncing a single through the box, but Sutcliffe picked him off and then fanned McGee.
Whitey is permanently entrenched Van Slyke in that 3 spot, figuring with Clark behind him, they'll throw him a lot of breaking balls.
Soft fly ball, right center field, Dernier. That'll do it. No score after 1 in steamy St. Louis. This telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball. May not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. You can tell by the patchiness of the field that we had some rainfall. Last night the game was delayed about a half hour or so, and it rained early this afternoon here.
You think this guy, Keith Moreland, didn't have some great coaching influence at the University of Texas? Baseball coach Cliff Gustafson. He's got a pile of people in the major leagues now. Played football. Darrell Royal was his football coach.
Speaking of college baseball coaches, well wishes are due to Rod Dado, who retired this week after a legendary career as the baseball coach at USC.
Years. Dado's the one, along with former Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, worked so hard to get baseball back as an experimental sport.
Thought that was Max Patkin down the left field line there for a minute. For a certain resemblance. Here's the 0-2. A weak wave at it, and Tudor has his second strikeout.
The front of home plate is 17 inches wide. When you add the black and the diameter of the ball, which is a little over 2 inches, you're talking about maybe 23, 24 inches, and Tudor will not use the middle 16. He will be right on the edges, and he will give or take anything the umpire will give him.
Swing and a miss by Durham, who is the only left-handed hitter in the lineup against Tudor, except for Sutcliffe.
He's a pretty good hitter.
Tudor quickly ahead, 0-2.
sharp breaking ball. John Tudor reminds me so much of Whitey Ford. Not stature, doesn't have the sharp breaking ball as Whitey, but complete command of the strike zone and do so many things with his fastball and change speeds.
A chance for Tommy Herr, and he takes care of Durham.
Tudor's and Ford's pitching philosophy just seems so similar. The way they operate on hitters, set them up with stuff outside, get strikeouts and broken bats inside. 2-0, Hal Lanier. Whitey Herzog gave the okay to Dick Wagner. He was hired by Houston. Look at this. George Steinbrenner said he will not say anything, and Al will run the ball club. They're losing 6-0 today.
The Orioles remain hot. McGregor beat Guidry last night.
Is Ossie having a year? 14 saves the last time. We'll see what he did last night.
2 of Spire's 3 homers were hit last night.
First time he ever had a 2-home-run ball game in his career. 16 years old. You get the ball as they did. They hung a forkball to him yesterday. Up and in, a fastball. Mediocre, belt high inside. Again, it was all but out of baseball 2 years ago. And Ossie got his 15th save last night. Steve Horn informs us, our crack statistician.
1-2 the count to Spire. 2 out, nobody on. Top of the second, no score at Busch Stadium. Hits softly into shallow center. Ozzie Smith back for the catch. So Tudor has set down all 6 Cubs he's faced, and we'll be right back.
First baseman, Jack Clark.
There are the sad numbers as far as last year's division champions are concerned. The difference is the pace in the National League West allows the Dodgers time, even in Guerrero's absence, to regroup. The Cardinals are in a division where the champion is likely to win 100 games. Jack Clark leads off. Fly ball into right center field, and Moreland wants it and has it.
It's got to be a pleasure for Rick Sutcliffe to come in this ballpark where he can throw long fly balls as opposed to pitching in Wrigley at this time of the year when the wind starts blowing out. 384-5 to right and left center field, 414 to center, 330 down the lines. The ball usually does not carry well here. And you make a mistake, it's not on Waveland Avenue as it is in Wrigley Field, Chicago. That's why pitchers are less frightened to throw strikes here. They say, here it is, whale away. You get to Wrigley Field and pitchers can hit the ball the opposite way out of the ballpark. And ruin your ERA.
Strike 1 to Tommy Herr. If there is a tune running through Tommy Herr's head, it might be Yesterday. Hit over 300 a year ago. Better than 100 RBIs. Mired at 176 right now.
He has tried about everything. He has tried opening his stance, striding into the ball. Johnny Lewis works with him constantly. Whitey Herzog has talked to him. Ozzie Smith has talked to him about hitting. So his bat speed has slowed down through the strike zone. You watch him on the left side. I had a chance to see a ball game 2 nights ago. Houston 2, Los Angeles 1 in the second. And he seems to be striding into everything from the left side and almost stepping on the corner of home plate. And he's so tied up inside. Some people have felt that he's been the best all-around ball player on this team for a couple of years.
2-2. Sutcliffe opened at 1-6, and his ERA was over 5 in his first 9 starts. He's won his last 3 with an ERA of 2.2 in that span. Popped up. Either Spire or Dunston. It's the veteran Spire.
Great shot from that center field camera before Herb popped that ball. To give you an idea of what the baseball old-timers call a wrist wrapper or a hooker in Rick Sutcliffe's case. When he was with the Dodgers, Al Campanis, the great GM there, almost every year we'll call Sutcliffe in and say, you got to change. You won't be a successful pitcher. Wrist wrappers. Wrap the ball behind their back. Aren't successful. Sutton does it. Jim Clancy does it. Watch his wrist. Just tightens up your forearm so it has a tendency, unless you're big and strong as he is, to wear your arm out. You do that for 125 or 30 pitches during the game. Think of what it does to your forearm. What it does, though, it does deceive the hitter. Remember Al Oliver telling me, he said, you cannot watch his hand behind his back because it looks like he's going to throw you a breaking ball every pitch.
Two out, nobody on. Bottom of the second, no score. And the next one to LaValle. Smacked into right field, but Moreland is there. Hit it well, but in the wrong place. And the Cardinals go down in order. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. She may be a little too young to have fully savored either the Cubs division championship in '84 or the Cardinals win a year ago. These youngsters will come to appreciate this rivalry. There are plenty of blue caps and shirts representing Cubby rooters sprinkled in among this crowd of probably better than 40,000. The Cardinals have the second highest attendance in the major leagues. The Dodgers have gone past 1 million, and the Cardinals may join them past the 1 million mark tomorrow. Davis, Dernier, and Sutcliffe in the third. This game officially is a sellout. All the tickets are sold and almost all the seats are occupied.
Davis, the second man for the Cubs this ball game, who's got a first pitch ball from Tudor. He gets ahead. Matthews is the other one. It's not just he throws a first pitch strike. He throws a first pitch strike right in the perfect spot where you can't. You know he's going to throw a strike or try to. You can't get at it.
2-1 pitch. Something off. Swing and a miss.
Jody Davis has really been a horse. He missed the last 2 innings of the ball game yesterday. He's caught all the innings except 18 this season for the Cubs. That's 473rd possible innings. Lake spelled him the last 2 last night. He had a string of 267 consecutively behind the plate.
Out of play down the right side.
It's a lot of wear and tear. You wonder if that will affect Jody Davis later on in the season. They finally have activated Steve Lake. Moreland had been their second string catcher up until last couple of days.
Second string in theory, but Fry never used him behind the plate. Again, the 2-2. Reaches for it into center field. McGee is there.
Tudor, what some refer to as a north, south, east, west pitcher, or back, forth, up and down, or in and out, whatever else.
You've confused me.
It's fun to sit around dugouts and listen to batting cages the way ball players say the same thing, but always use different terminology. Jargon to the bench.
Everybody was off that bench and out on the field in the 9th inning when Dunston and Varger nearly went at it. And each was anxious. It took a long while, as you said, Tony, to quiet Sean Dunston. Dernier chops one to Pendleton. Good glove man, and he throws him out.
Boy, the guy that has really been a problem for this Cubs offense, they can't get Dernier on base. Leading off, 8th spot. Mumphrey was scheduled to play center field, but he came up with some lower back problems. That's happened in the last couple of nights. Eckersley's scratched from the start. Lopes left the ball game with lower back problems. Mumphrey today.
Sutcliffe has a homer and 4 RBIs. Remember the mammoth home run he hit in the first game of the playoffs last year at Wrigley, or 2 years ago, against San Diego. Have to take him seriously up there. 1-1.
Tim Lawler over there now, taking some BP for John McNamara, in case he's used as a pinch hitter. That 24-man roster. Sutcliffe, his first start in this ballpark, not this year, first when he came back to National, he had 175 people. Busloads. His home near Kansas City.
Line drive right at Ozzie.
Routine for him.
So the Wizard puts an end to the top of the third. Call it coincidence if you like, but as soon as he got over the food poisoning, that's when Rick Sutcliffe put together his present 3-game winning streak. He and some teammates, Leon Durham, Ron Say, Gary Matthews, and Jody Davis, all called room service a few weeks ago at a Houston hotel. They were to play that night, and they had a tray full of sandwiches. All of them wound up with food poisoning, except for Jody Davis. They later ascertained that Davis was the only one who had a sandwich without mayonnaise, which is something to keep in mind, I guess, next time you're in Houston. So Sutcliffe winds up in the hospital for 3 days, loses 15 pounds. At that point, he's 1-6. Since then, he's won 3 in a row. Ozzie Smith.
Spire at third, Durham at first, up tight for the little Wizard, not just with a glove. Little talk he had with Eddie Murray in spring training, going to a heavier bat that he used all spring, has quickened him a little bit to play and strengthened his hands.
Bernier records the putout.
Baltimore 7. Yankees nothing.
Batting eighth, number 9.
The little genius is back. Earl Weaver. Let's pause. Habit of getting stronger as the season progresses.
Let's pause briefly here for station identification. This is the NBC television network.
Notice how I handle that when you said, let's pause, I made you pause. It's a new trick I've learned.
Ball 1 to Pendleton, who's hitting .215. We're in the bottom of the third at Busch Stadium. Bob Costas with Tony Kubek. No score. Cubs and Cardinals. Boy, that wire strike zone never ceases to amaze.
You know where you stand when you leave the on-deck circle. And you know you stand with a wide strike zone and a high strike zone. And Jody Davis just sets up outside and hits the target. Bingo.
Line drive, base hit. So a one-out single for Pendleton. And Tudor comes up in a sacrifice situation.
The Cardinal team, a team last year who averaged just over 4.5 runs per game. Don't know how many infield hits they had last year, but that total is way down. The biggest problem they've had offensively, Whitey Herzog says, is swinging at pitches over their heads, out of the strike zone. Not moving runners. When they do get on, they're taking themselves out of innings.
Heck, the Cardinals led the National League. Pendleton bluffed running, and Tudor takes a strike. The Cardinals led the National League in runs scored last year. The bottom has fallen out of their offense, for the time being at least.
Only Houston has scored fewer runs in the National League this year.
Tudor squares and bunts. Sutcliffe has it. Sacrifice works. Sandberg covers.
People don't realize how good an athlete Tudor is. An outstanding hockey player in high school and some college. He's still skating with the St. Louis Blues on occasion.
He did last year during the offseason a few times. Now it'll be Vince Coleman. Look at that. It's fine to move runners along, but occasionally you need to hit the ball hard, hit it into the gaps. The Cardinals have never been a home run team, at least not the past several years. In fact, they won the pennant in '82 while being last in the league in homers, and only Pittsburgh hit fewer last year, and they won the pennant that year as well. But only 16 home runs. That's an anemic figure. The next lowest total in the league belongs to Houston, and they've hit 33, more than twice as many. And they play in the Astrodome. Not exactly a home run hitter's haven. Coleman singled his first time.
It's going.
No, bluff and a strike call.
That distracted Coleman. You got 2 outs. Why are you messing around like that? Perhaps to get the third baseman, Spire to cover the bag, maybe create a hole. But it's a little bit difficult to hit, and you can see that Coleman keeps stepping out, trying to get his thoughts again. Gather himself. The team's struggling as much as it is to hit to start with. They don't need any more distractions than their own player.
One pitch. Checked his swing, and now he's behind 0-2.
He did it again. He decoyed going to third. I mean, you got a pitcher pitching the right side, your left-handed hitter. They always ask the umpire to move to the opposite side so he is not distracting them. And then your own guy with a white suit at second base is false starting. It's like a basketball game when you fake a pass to your own player and throw it at his foot.
Let's see if Pendleton has gotten the message.
Coleman hitting a little bit more out of a crouch now. He's been a much more disciplined hitter.
It never fails. You turn and look towards second, which is completely legal, to bluff a throw in that direction. And the hometown fans holler balk.
The middle infielders are giving the middle of the diamond where Pendleton is getting a very big lead. Sutcliffe knows going to try and hold Pendleton one step closer.
Outside, 1-2.
Listen, love to listen to Lee Wire, do you? He not only tells you ball or strike, he tells you exactly where it is. Sometimes on our field mics, you can hear him say, ball's outside 6 inches. Ball's low 4 inches. He gives you all the information. In fact, I'm going to have him up here do play-by-play so good and ship you down there.
I'm on my way. One-two pitch. Spun him away, 2-2. Couple of distinctive personalities when it comes to working the plate on this crew. Dutch Rennert, perhaps the loudest umpire in the major league when calling balls and strikes, and Wire.
Oshkosh's best. Dutch Rennert, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Ed Montague and Lee Wire are amateur magicians. They'll entertain you before the game or anytime you ask.
2-2 to Coleman with 2 out, and Pendleton at second in the bottom of the third.
You can see what the satellite dish has done is slowing the pace of a ball game with a runner on second, and so many teams taping ball games with the center field camera, stealing catcher sides, and they've had to make them much more complicated, and that's what's happening now. Sutcliffe and Jody Davis with the runner at second keep switching, doing different things, making Coleman wait, then he steps out.
That's a base hit in between Durham and the bag. The Cardinals have the lead. Let's see if Coleman can get a triple. He will. Coleman has his 6th triple, and despite the Cardinals' other woes, he continues to sizzle, closing in on the 300 mark now. And if he hits that well, he's going to steal around 100 bases.
How would you like to see Willie McGee, Juan Samuel, Jeff Stone, and Willie Wilson race this distance? It'll be close. You think Coleman will beat him? And he had an outstanding pitch. It was a breaking ball down and in, perhaps out of the strike zone, and hitting out of that crouch, he went down and just rifled it. They're playing him up the middle. Jody Davis, even with 2 out, alerting Ryan Sandberg, who brought him in about 6 steps in case McGee tries to bunt, beat it out and score Coleman.
Ball 1 to Willie McGee, who struck out his first time. Took a called third strike from Sutcliffe. Sutcliffe's control has returned in his 3-game winning streak. He had been uncharacteristically wild before that. Swing and a miss, 2-1.
Now before his last outing against Cincinnati, where he walked 5 and struck out just 3, he got the win, but his Saskian battled home runs. He had pitched 2 complete games against Houston and Cincinnati. And in those 2 complete games, he walked only 5. The velocity of the fastball was gone. He couldn't generate the arm speed for the slider. He started nibbling a little bit. Couldn't throw all his pitches for strikes, and Billy Connors discovered the flaw in his delivery. And he's much more confident with all 4 of his pitches.
Holman at third after his triple. 1-0 Cardinals. The 2-2 pitch. Called third strike. McGee goes down looking for the second time today, but Coleman can smile. His hit has given the Cardinals the early lead. You know, Tony, we were talking before about this Cardinal team. It's simply too good to continue to play as miserably as they have. 21-29, that's .420 ball. And I think they'll have their hot streak, and I think they'll wind up finishing second to the Mets. But to put it in perspective, in order to win 90, and that's not going to be good enough in this division, they have to play 6-16 baseball, 69 and 43 the rest of the way.
Well, when the Mets can throw stopper at you every outing, and Bob Ojeda starts as your number 5 starter, that's how he started the season, tell you the depth of their pitching staff. Aguilera moves in that bullpen now. McDowell, Orozco. George Foster's begun to hit now over the last week and a half or so, hitting home runs. They look to be uncatchable.
Tudor has not allowed a base runner through the first 3. He'll face Dunston, Matthews, and Sandberg in the 4th with a 1-0 lead.
When you talk raw ability, it's the kid up at the plate. There's nobody, and I mean Tony Fernandez from Toronto, Alfredo Griffin from Oakland, Ozzie Smith, who has better raw range. The strength of his throwing arm is phenomenal. He's still learning. And still, his footwork crosses him up once in a while. What a job Ruben Amaro's done with him.
Amaro, former slick fielding big league shortstop, now the first base coach of the Cubs. Still 0-2 to Dunston. Eventful evening for him last night. He had 2 doubles, a single, reached on an error, stole a base, was hit by a pitch, and ejected after a fight. California continuing to lead Cleveland. That is a foul ball, and barely so. Did you see Reggie Jackson's quote about Gene Mauch? He said, "You're not exactly talking about the village idiot. I don't care who criticizes him. You can't build a house if you don't have the toolbox." And most of the teams Mauch has managed just simply have not been that talented.
You know, one thing, the Angels have got to be very happy to get out of the Eastern Division, back playing the West. They're more competitive.
Again, the 0-2. And it's popped up. Herb backpedaling. 1 out in the 4th.
Wally Joyner has hit his 18th home run today.
Never hit more than 12 in a minor league season. He muscles up in the majors.
It's interesting to see how Sean Dunston, from the very first pitch, started hitting off John Tudor. Usually against a power pitcher, some players anyway start trying to hit like they've got 2 strikes on them, even though it's the first pitch. He's not a power pitcher, but his control is so great, and knowing that, Lee Wyer's strike zone is fairly liberal toward the pitcher. Dunston went up there just pecking away at the ball in the first pitch to him.
2-0 to Matthews. Talking about Joyner. There's a closer look at Sean Dunston. We're reminded again of what a remarkable season this is for rookies in both leagues, especially the American League with Joyner, Canseco, Incaviglia, Tartabull. Over in the National League, you've got Will Clark with the Giants.
Disabled now.
Andy Galarraga, strong young first baseman for the Expos. 3-1. I was trying to think what year might have seen a comparable influx of good rookie hitters. And I came up with 1964. Here's the 3-1. And Matthews has a walk with 1 out here in the 4th, the first base runner against Tudor. In 1964, Tony Oliva, who would win batting titles his first 2 years with the Twins, Jim Ray Hart, Dick, then known as Richie Allen, Tony Canigliaro, Rico Cardi, They were all rookies in 1964. Pretty good crop there.
You know, I think it's like anything else in this game, and the game has stayed relatively the same, but after expansions, artificial surface, whatever's happening in the ball, fluctuating tendencies, to compare that like anything else is awfully difficult. A lot of older players now, a lot of kids rushed up.
Sandberg punches it foul.
What I'm trying to say is perhaps the quality of play before all the expansions was better in 64 than it is now. In fact, as I watch some of the teams in both leagues now, I mean, this guy's an exception, obviously. He's one of the 5 best players in the game, Sandberg. It may be as weak a quality of play we're seeing right now as back in the Second World War, where all the great players were calling the service. A lot of good teams are not playing very well. Good players don't sustain 5, 6, 7 years in a row like the players did years ago. I don't know what it is, multi-year contracts or whatever else, but it's just not happening.
But, of course, there are exceptions.
Oh, yeah. Well, Murphy's and others.
In the air to left center field with Coleman and McGee in pursuit. Back on that track and gone. First hit for the Cubs, and they take the lead 2-1. Whenever the Cardinals and Cubs get together, be it here or at Wrigley, we're reminded of what has come to be known simply as the Sandberg game. You got to look at it on the opening of the telecast. The 5-hit, 2-homer game back in '84. Cubs won it at Wrigley 12-11 in 11 as Sandberg twice tied the game with late-inning homers off Bruce Sutter.
A fastball up and out over the plate. Sandberg got his arms extended and was gone. When you look at a player that, I'm not saying he's perfect. I don't know if players ever been creative that was that, unless it's Mantle or Mays or Aaron and some of the others. But when you talk about power, speed, average defense, arm, all else instincts, look right at Ryan Sandberg, huh, in almost every area. What poll was it? And they used some legitimate data, numbers, to show that Sandberg was the best player in the game. Ricky Henderson and name anybody else, Dale Murphy. There he is, and he can do a lot of things.
Well, as Dizzy Dean once put it, if he's not the best, he's amongst them. But you could get an argument based on sustained excellence from Eddie Murray, from George Brett.
Oh, yeah.
Into right field, Van Slyke gets there. Boy, he's a good outfielder.
Whitey Herzog, with his team so far behind, is finding out if Van Slyke can play every day against all kinds of pitching. Outstanding throwing arm. You can see his speed. He's a base stealer. Will his makeup allow him to be a star? I guess that's so true of a lot of players.
Durham with 2 out and nobody on takes a strike on the inside portion of the plate. He had a homer last night and sent 2 other drives to the warning track.
The defense behind John Tudor is so important. We just saw Van Slyke. We saw it earlier with Ozzie Smith. He's not a strikeout pitcher. His control is so good. Whitey Herzog makes his own charts up. Ozzie Smith studies him before every ball game. The only middle infielder I know that does that every day against every pitcher and every team. He's looking at the charts to see tendencies.
With the Cubs so overloaded with right-handed hitters, Tudor is just the 13th southpaw they've faced this year. A bullet, but Herr has it. 2 runs ride home on the Sandberg blast. It's 2-1 Cubbies. Good opportunity to catch some rays in St. Louis this afternoon. Bottom half of the 4th. And the heart of the order, Van Slyke, Clark, and Herr for the Cardinals. They've had some heart problems this year, unlike last. That heart was beating in healthy fashion, middle of the order in 1985. Take a guy like Clark, At this time last year, he had 43 RBIs, and had he not been hurt in August, he would have topped 100 for the season. He's driven home just 16 to this point in 86.
The walk pace that Clark's on, he should walk over 100 times for the first time in his career. I don't blame anybody for not pitching to Clark. That's why Herzog, as we said, has Van Slyke in this spot. The curveball more difficult to throw strikes with, so Van Slyke will get more fastballs from left and right-handed pitchers. Unless you're talking about a guy like Sutcliffe, who has such great command with the changeup, slider, curve, and different kinds of fastballs.
Sutcliffe will be the first to tell you he was not pitching well during that 1-6 start, but neither were his teammates helping him out. They scored just 7 runs in his 6 losses. In fact, check this out. The Cubs are 1-20 this year when they score 3 runs or less. Popped up. Sandberg goes out into short center field and clutches it. Now, you're not going to win many games when you score only 2-3 runs, but you should be able to squeak out a few. The Cubs, at least so far this year, only win when their offense erupts. They're not winning any 2-1, 3-2 games.
Jack Clark.
The last pitch that Sutcliffe threw, he started to work the changeup into his repertoire now. Pulled the string on Van Slyke, had him way out in front. Outstanding fastball hitter right here, and Jack Clark. That's Tom Niedenfuhrer, huh?
1-0 pitch. Breaking ball for a strike.
He's won in both leagues. National League Championship here. Lost to the Phillies. Managing the Kansas City that World Series. A lot of impatient front offices all over. The general manager, the man who runs the ball club, Dallas Green, has many times in spring training saying it's not Jimmy Fry's fault. Last year they had all the arm problems. Their whole staff went down.
3-1.
The way Clark hit through the first 4 pitches, with that close stance off the plate, he looked like he was going to try and get something to drive the other way. The defense is playing him to pull infield and the outfield. He looked like he was looking pitches away with that stance. He's smart enough perhaps to try and set him up inside. He changed up 3-1.
Let's see if Davis has room. Apparently, yes.
That's the difference right there in Sutcliffe from the beginning of the season, when he would have to come in with a fastball 3-1 because that's about all that was working. He didn't have much velocity on that. Now 3-1, he pulls the string. Clark looking fastball. He upsets his timing, hits him on the end of the bat. Now starting to be able to throw anything he wants when he's behind in the count, or start a hitter off with any of 4 pitches when he's in the groove as he has been the last 3 or 4 starts, and usually throw it for a strike.
Tommy Herr's average now sits at $1.75. You knew that 1985 was likely to be a career year for him. He wasn't going to match last year's totals. But you properly think of Tommy Herr as a 270, 280 hitter. A guy who in this lineup, if you hit him third, and that's where he began the season and where he hit all last year, was likely to drive in 70 runs. Just hasn't happened.
Every time he come up, or almost every time, he had one of the scooters out at second base after a steal.
It's an easy 4th inning for Sutcliffe. Durham ends it by taking care of her in unassisted fashion, and we'll be back after these messages from your local station. One of, if not the, game's best manager, Whitey Herzog. You know, some people around the country have wondered what Whitey Herzog is up to, criticizing his ball club. It's been in the newspapers and on TV, people criticizing him for being outspoken. Whitey is not doing anything differently in that regard than he has ever done. He has always been very blunt and honest, and he didn't single out any individual players. He simply said, in honest response to a reporter's question, hey, we're terrible right now. We're not hitting the ball. We're not playing all around the way we can. And we can't even think about catching the Mets until we right ourselves and get up to 500 and maybe put something together to build on for 1987. That was simply a typical Herzog comment. Spire skies one to center. And McGee has it for the out as we go to Bill McAtee in New York. William?
All right, Bob, we want to get you updated on the French Open men's doubles final, a match that took 4 hours and 20 minutes on the red clay at Roland Garros Stadium. The Swedish team of Stefan Edberg and Andres Sherrod losing to Thomas Schmidt and John Fitzgerald. The fifth set went to a tiebreaker, 14-12.
All right, Bill, thanks very much. You know, some people outside St. Louis wondered whether Herzog might have bruised the feelings of his players with his candid comments. Not at all. I spoke to several Cardinals about it. They said, hey, he didn't say anything in the press that he hasn't told us in the clubhouse. That's the way Whitey is. If anything, he's helped us relax during this bad stretch. And if anything, he's been a joy for the press to deal with, the people around this ball club.
You think there aren't some Cubs fans in this ballpark? When Sandberg hit the 2-run home run in the fourth after Matthews walks, it almost sounded here as though the Cub fans out-screamed the booing Cardinal fans. Beautiful geographic rivalry, and down through the years, since 1900, there isn't that many games separating these two teams as far as one loss. Less than 100.
Well, you know, when we go to Wrigley Field for the game of the week, if the Cardinals are there, we'll see a lot of red shirts in Chicago. Little squibber down toward her. Tommy has it, and Davis is gone.
The natural instinct of any pitcher, Tudor in this case too. He changes up high in the strike zone. He starts to go after his, I've got a good defense behind me. I'm not going to deflect it, and hers right there.
So just to finish up the thought, some had speculated that Herzog might have been reacting adversely to the pressure. He hasn't had many losing teams. His teams have won in Kansas City and here in St. Louis. Obviously, he doesn't like losing. It eats away at him. But he isn't going to pieces. This ball is well hit to left. Coleman goes back. It's really carrying, and it's off the wall. McGee comes over from center to play the carom, and Dernier has a 2-out double.
I had a call yesterday from Jason Stark, a fine writer out of the Philadelphia area, and he said, oh, the people that make the baseballs are mad at you. You keep saying these balls are livelier. Well, I saw Spire hit 2 on the second floor here yesterday in deep left field, and this ball off the bat of Dernier hitting in the 8th spot has been struggling. It just keeps on going. It's a good pitch to hit. Tudor says, I made a mistake. He knew it right there. Different reaction than off the home run. And I don't know how you explain home runs being up over 30% in the National League. Whitey Herzog says the pitching's worse. Look at my team, 16 home runs.
Well, if the people who make the baseballs are angry with you, they're right here in town, the Rawlings Company in St. Louis, so perhaps you could have a little post-game tea with them and settle your differences.
Little tea party, huh?
0-2 to Sutcliffe.
Well, unless they show me some documentation that it isn't, they're living in the Alice in Wonderland fantasy world also. Their tea party.
Oh,
the Mad Hatter.
I'm just an innocent bystander. And Sutcliffe might as well have been a bystander on that at-bat. He goes down on 3 pitches. Dernier is stranded at second. We'll be back. Once again, at the end of the game, we'll select the NBC Miller Lite Player of the Game. And an award will be made to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society in the name of whatever player grabs that honor today. Whitey Herzog calls Mike LaValliere Smokey. And if you ever saw Smokey Burgess play and got a load of his physique, you know why. Ball 1 high.
Well, this kid is an outstanding looking catcher. Mike Heath, man that came in the trade with Andujar involved, has really struggled with the bat and defensively. Whitey also, like Casey Stengel, one of his mentors, had difficulty pronouncing his last name, like I do. It became Smokey.
Well, Casey did that with a lot of players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have to make up a nickname for them because he didn't remember his real name.
Did it for show, though. Tell you who you were and what you could do. Herzog's got Casey's little caricature drawings all over his office. Still says that Casey Stengel taught the best offensive routine he's ever seen. Still uses it.
2-2 to LaValliere. What was it that Casey said during a losing streak? Walks into the barber shop. He says, "Shaving a haircut, but don't slit my throat. I might want to do that myself."
Was that in the great Robert Kramer book?
Biography of Casey? I don't know if it was or not. Here's Spire, and he throws LaValliere out. Robert Kramer wrote what might be the definitive biographies of two great baseball figures, Babe Ruth and Casey Stengel.
Ozzie Smith.
Spire the younger, the youngest of the three third basemen. Lopes started the first game here. Davies 40. Ron Say, upper 30s. What's Spire, 35?
He mentioned in his last at-bat that Ozzie Smith had taken some hitting advice from Eddie Murray.
Mm-hmm.
He and Murray went to high school together in the Los Angeles area. Lonnie Smith and Chet Lemon were contemporaries in that general vicinity. They played against one another in their high school days. And they immediately followed George Hendrick, Bob Watson, Bobby Tolan from that same area. Line drive, base hit. Over Dunston's leap.
Whoa. Nice play by Matthews. He cut down the gap in a big hurry, playing on damaged knees. Ozzie thought it had double written all over it. As soon as it cleared, Sean Dunston. Matthews got a good jump and cut it off. You know, Ozzie Smith has always had outstanding hand-eye control with a bat in his hand along with the glove. But that little bit of extra body strength that he has picked up, he does some karate in the offseason, did lift weights until he hurt the shoulder. And Eddie Murray said, use a heavier bat in the spring. And he said, my hands are so much stronger now. The balls that used to be little loopers in the infield now carry. Hit some gaps now.
And that's another fact about which you can check with Tom Niedenfuhr. Because Niedenfuhr was also the victim of Ozzie Smith's only left-handed home run, and it won Game 5 of the playoffs here last year. As a team, with Coleman the individual league leader, the Cardinals again lead the National League in stolen bases.
With their run production down, about a run per game over last year, Whitey Herzog, even behind, knows he's got to run. He got Coleman thrown out yesterday when they were behind. So you cannot take Ozzie Smith for granted. He gets on second base, you've got your 8-hitter Pendleton. You're going to let him swing and not walk him. So you may see Smith on the move, get in scoring position, try and generate a little offense, which has been so hard for the Cardinals this year.
1 on, 1 out, and a 1-1 pitch coming. But first, a leisurely toss.
Sutcliffe almost does the opposite of what most pitchers try and do against the Cardinals. Some try and quick pitch and get away with balls because they don't really come to his set position. He is holding the ball, trying to get Smith to rock back on his feet, on his heels. That time he went faster, changing his rhythm.
It is a very warm day, and Sutcliffe, who can work deliberately anyway, is taking more and more time between pitches to gather himself.
Good pitch to go on.
Tell you something about Sutcliffe, and I know that the term classy is overused in sports, but here's a guy who will stand up and face the press and do so with a little bit of grace, no matter how adverse the circumstances. When he's getting racked around, he doesn't go hide in the trainer's room.
Whoop, he got him.
You bet. Second man he's picked off. He got Coleman in the first.
Here comes Whitey. Whitey's out of the dugout. He wants the ball. He thinks that Sutcliffe, the old Dodger trick, Drysdale did it, Sutton did it, and still does it. Whitey wants the ball. He's saying he cracked his front knee. Like he's going home and then threw back, and then Ozzie going to second. You knew Herzog. There he is. He's with the left knee. He said he cracked his knee. It's a balk. He cannot throw behind. So many umpiring crews will say that they take different areas of the body. Any of the four can call it. Some say we'll look at the feet, look at the shoulder. I'll look at the head. Watch Sutcliffe's front knee, left knee. There it is, folks. That is a balk, and he got away with it. He got away with it. Herzog saw it. The replays show it. Ozzie may not even have been going. He was leaning. I don't believe he was stealing. But the balk move got him.
And now Pendleton grounds one toward the hole. Good play by Durham, and Sutcliffe covers. Score at 3-1, and the Cardinals are history in the fifth. Whitey Herzog in no mood to be amused by another edition of Characters of the Game.
Ken Edmondson, our producer, Bucky Gunst directing, and on camera 5, center field Barry Fisher captures this balk move by Rick Sutcliffe. Watch the left knee. And the right knee. He decoyed Smith. So many pitching coaches. Billy Connors is one. Galen Cisco when he was at Montreal, and now the San Diego Padres say, hey, look, you guys got a good base stealer on. If he's going to be on second anyway and steal on, you might as well try a trick move to get away with it. You pick him off. If you don't, they call a balk. He's only as far as second base anywhere, was where he would have been. And look at this. Herzog is still all over some of the umpires. A veteran crew with Renard at first, Wire behind the plate. Sutcliffe got away with one. You don't know how important that'd be, but Ozzie Smith, if the balk were called, would have been on second base for Pendleton. He was a tie and run.
Another veteran ump, Ed Montague at second, and as we mentioned, the rookie ump, his first week in the majors, Gary Darling at third. Dunston hits the first pitch to Pendleton, who was in close in case he bunted, but was quick enough to snare the hot shot.
You just don't know what would happen. If their balk is called, you got, or if he isn't even picked off, if he's just staying there, you got Durham holding the runner on. You never know what happens to Pendleton's ball. Herzog is still all over Lee Wire. And he's using Lee Wire as a focal point, but any of the four umpires could have seen that. And one place they should be looking, that is all of them at the pitcher, the guy who's got the baseball in his hand. Wonder how much they'll take from Whitey.
A veteran umpire like Wire is a model of professionalism, but they're all human. This is a hot, uncomfortable day to be back at the plate. Pendleton on the short hop. Pretty play.
He tripped, almost fell down, or his cleats started going. They scooted out from under him. Made a nice recovery. Watch him flop down. Recovered. Faster runner. Might have had a chance. A young Gary Matthews might have had a chance. He made a tough hop by falling, but he picked it nicely.
Cheers from the Cub fans, overwhelmed by boos from Cardinals supporters. Sandberg's homer is the difference. 2-1 Cubs as they bat in the sixth.
The potential of the Cubs in the middle of the diamond is really something. With Jody Davis hitting like he is and catching so much better with the help of Johnny Oates, Dunston with the raw ability, Sandberg's already made it, Dernier if he could get on. It's the kind of team if they could put it together, and it looks like they've got a pretty deep starting staff. And with Lee Smith to close it out, just the chemistry just can't be constructed in the right way by Fry.
This will stay in for Clark. And Tudor dispatches the Cubs quickly in the sixth after 5.5. Chicago 2, St. Louis 1. We've got two games for you next week on NBC. The Yankees and Orioles in the first half of the doubleheader. Most of you will see that. Some will see the Reds and Braves. Everybody sees the Royals and Angels from Anaheim in the second half. It begins at 1 Eastern time next Saturday on NBC. Tudor against Sutcliffe. First pitch swinging. Fly ball into shallow left. Matthews, Dunston, and Dunston goes way out there to take it. He knows with Matthews' lack of mobility he has to be prepared to range far for pops, and he did there.
There have been a lot of people on the coaching staff of the Cubs who have contributed to the success. Sean Dunston, Matthews, as you said, doesn't run well, but Jimmy Fry and, of course, Don Zimmer, former shortstop out of the Dodger chain, they've tried to tell Dunston, led by Jimmy Fry, you've got to separate offense from defense. You can be aggressive with the bat, but you got to be a little calmer defensively. It's two different games, like defense and offense in basketball. And they're calming him down gradually.
He will make some eye-popping plays, and then, like last night, he made an error because he hurried unnecessarily. Sharply hit ground ball, stepped on second for a force, and with the great arm he has, there was no need to rush, and he unloaded the throw too quickly, threw it by Durham. Cardinals got a run out of it. With a base hit here, Coleman would go over 300, but he's not going to get it. Dernier will.
That's a pattern that they would like to pitch to Vince Coleman. If he can lay off that pitch above the belt out of that crouch, Baltimore now leads the Yankees only 7-5 in the ninth inning. Paliarulo with a 3-run home run. Boy, did he bounce up off the deck when he got hit in the nose. Hit a home run the next day. He's one tough kid.
Coleman had singled and tripled to hike his average to 298 before that at-bat. Now here's McGee, who's been called out on strikes twice. Long drive to right. This could tie it. You bet. Well, after looking at third strikes his first two trips, Willie gets the bat off his shoulder and gets the Cardinals back even.
He was called out on strikes on 2 fastballs away, first 2 times up. Sutcliffe had 2 easy outs, the first 2 hitters, Tudor and Coleman, and he said, well, I'll just get ahead of him with a breaking ball. And it was a breaking ball that hung, and McGee jumped all over it.
Van Slyke is disgusted with Wyer's call. Strike 1 on what Wyer said was a pitch on the inside corner.
Over in the other league, the Toronto Blue Jays and Minnesota Twins have allowed quite a few more of the DH in that league in smaller ballparks. Cubs ERA, the worst in the National League.
They're allowing about 4.5 earned runs per game. One and 2 to Andy Van Slyke, who was flied out and popped out. Clark next. Change of pace, and it's in there. So a called third strike to Van Slyke, but the Cardinals get even on the McGee home run. Back after this from your local station.
Join Steve Sizer for your sports tonight.
Well, we'd expected a good pitching duel. There is the masked invader in the Cub dugout. We've gotten a good pitching duel.
That fella's into the ammonia bucket, something that some teams use, ammonia water. Cool you down, an ice bucket. Remember Pete Reynolds one year, I saw him at 4 consecutive line drives, all outs. It was the year he led the American League. He took that bucket, poured it right over his head out of frustration on a 100-degree day. He was really cool.
What a daffy character. Moreland, Durham, and Spire in the top of the 7th. Tudor and Sutcliffe tied at 2. Strike 1 is called. What was the line Ron Swoboda had? The old Met outfielder after a particularly frustrating day. This one is hit softly into right. Van Slyke chases it down.
When has there been a better defensive outfield than this? Throwing, chasing the ball down, to go a ways back. Talking strictly defense. They're a good offensive team too, but they don't have the power that a lot of the offensive, you know, the Maris's, Mantle, Tresh outfield. What was Ron Swoboda's line?
Well, he went 0 for 5, hitting 5 line drives, all of which were caught, on a day the Mets won. And in the locker room afterward, he said, if we'd lost, I'd be eating my heart out. As it is, I'm only eating the left ventricle. 2 quick strikes to the bull.
Tudor has that deceptive delivery. Call it stepping across your body. Another thing Whitey Ford did, where the ball appears to be coming out of the uniform. And he also has the facility to left-handed hitters like Durham, the only one in this ball game, aside from Sutcliffe again, to drop down from the side and still catch the outside part of the plate with a curve or with the fastball.
1-2 pitch. Got him.
He's merciless. Some people said that John Tudor, he was a little bit too mild-mannered. That was his problem up in Boston. Well, he's pitched 5 complete years in the big leagues. He's never had a losing record. And that includes all the times he's spent in Fenway Park, that right-handed hitter's ballpark.
Last year, when he was in that unconscious groove, winning 20 out of 21 decisions, after opening at 1-7, no less an authority than Keith Hernandez declared that Tudor was the best left-hander he had ever faced. And remember, he had hit against Carlton and Valenzuela and others at that point.
The difference about lefty, he's done it over 15 years with consistency. Valenzuela, since he came up, even though his 1-loss record doesn't show it, he completes ball games. Tudor has done it last year, which was exceptional. The test of time.
1-2 to Spire. Top of the 7th. 2 out, nobody on. Cubs 2, Cards 2. Not many left-handers have fared well at Fenway. Whitey Ford, whom you've alluded to many times today, had a lifetime ERA over 6 there. Boy, he took something off, and that changeup turned Spire into Tudor's 5th strikeout victim. We'll go to the bottom of the 7th after another edition of 7th inning stretch. Well, the Cardinals' decline to this point in the season can be expressed in so many different ways. Kerr, Clark, and McGee all off drastically from last year. Look at the turnaround in terms of their home field play. They were .666 at Busch a year ago. They're 4 under 500 here so far this season. Just to put it in historical perspective, only one team in Major League history has won a pennant or division championship and then finished last the next season, and the Cardinals are in the cellar in the National League East right now. They won't finish there. They're too good a team. But just for the sake of the discussion, the only team to have that fate befall it was the Philadelphia A's, managed by Connie Mack. They won the pennant in 1914, then fell to 8th at 43 and 109. 8th was last back in 1915. Clark leads it off in the last of the 7th.
Well, you know, Whitey Herzog's been hurt. It's not this situation now, but the middle relief, when you get Lottie, who's been Jeff Lottie, so valuable to him. He had to go in his shoulder and do the arthroscopic surgery and do some surgery. Conroy was throwing the ball in the low 90s, a left-hander. Ricky Horton. And you get torn up out of that middle relief and long relief sometimes. And you don't get to Todd Burrell quite as often. As a stopper, can't hold him in there, so. Makes it tough to manage when you've got pitchers like that who go unnoticed out for such a long periods of time.
Fouled out of play, 2-2. The Cubs have just 2 hits off Tudor, but one of them was a 2-run homer by Sandberg following a Matthews walk. That's a final now. The Paliarulo homer made it closer, but the Yankees lose to Baltimore 7-5 at Yankee Stadium. Cards have 5 hits against Sutcliffe, one of them a homer by McGee.
That Boston pitching staff is something. Clemens getting his 10th win yesterday.
How about Boggs? He's up to 404.
He's going to hit 400, I'm telling you.
Just missed. 3-2. You flatly say he's going to hit 400.
Yeah, he's going to hit 400 this year. You want me to tell you how much over 400? 409? Do I have to be that specific?
The man is out of control. The Astros lead at L.A. in the 5th. Payoff pitch. Breaking ball foul back.
You see what Ray Miller tried to do, the Minnesota Twins and Boggs? When the pitcher was in his motion, he took his shortstop, Greg Gagne, and second baseman Steve Lombardozzi, and moved them while the pitcher was in motion. The umpire said the next time they do that, they're going to throw him out of the game. Miller swears that when he sets his defense up, Boggs can analyze it and hit the ball to the blank spot. Vacancy.
Again, the 3-2. And again, it's foul back. Well, didn't Eddie Stanky, who was a great one for gamesmanship, didn't he cause a rules change playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers? He used to stand out near second base and try and distract the batter by jumping up and down and waving his arms around.
I think the rule changed, and I don't know if it was Stanky, but I think it was Stanky with Ted Williams when they put the shift on, and Stanky behind second base waving his arms and doing jumping jacks. You can't do that.
Well hit to center field. Back is Dernier, and off the wall at the 414 sign. Clark heading for 3. A leadoff triple. Boy, that was a rocket.
Sutcliffe threw fastball after fastball. That Jack Clark foul back was a little late. Then he tried to put a little extra on the fastball, and Jack Clark caught up with it. Dernier drifted back rather than ran back very fast, but only because that little bit of a wind, as high as it was, it kept drifting it away from him. Had he gotten back as fast as he couldn't jump, he might have had a play. The ball was hit very, very hard, about 420 feet away. One of the park, except from Yankee Stadium, would not have been a home run. I think it'd be out in Kansas City, too.
Tiger Stadium would have held it.
Yeah, I guess. 440 dead center.
But not many other places. Now the infield comes in. Strike one to Tommy Herr.
And he doesn't like the call. He thinks it's outside.
If Dernier had been able to get back there, brace himself, and get truly to the peak of his leap, he might have had a chance for a great catch.
He would have. Would have been a good play, as you said. The wind just kept pushing it behind him.
A big at-bat for Tommy Herr. He'd like to do here what he hasn't been able to do consistently this season, with the Cardinals a lead. Third inning last night, they had Guy Hoffman on the ropes. He was having control problems. A couple of walks had loaded the bases, and Herr grounded out in that situation to end the threat. Cardinals never got close again. 1-1 pitch. Through the middle. Boy, chuck and duck was the order of the day for Rick Sutcliffe. That baby came back in a flash.
And there is where some pitchers claim that the ball is livelier, that now they don't just react to catch a ball off the bat, they throw their hands in front of their face in self-defense so it doesn't hit them and injure them. He threw him 3 of those in a row. Running fastballs out over the plate, and Herr went with it very, very nicely. Didn't try and pull it. Going to get somebody up in the bullpen now for the Chicago Cubs.
A little bit of weight off those shoulders for number 28.
Mike Shannon, former Cardinal and now broadcaster for the Cardinals, said back when the Cardinals beat the Brewers in the World Series that the last 3 months of the year, Tommy Herr was the best player that he had. The left-hander is Ray Fontenot. Frazier, the right-hander, with Johnny Oates down there, the bullpen catcher. It's a little bit of a soft spot for the Cubs last year. Lee Smith went 2 innings yesterday. So only in the 7th, it is not his time yet. The big right-hander who, since coming off the disabled list, has really pitched well.
So the Cardinals have the 3-2 lead. The RBIs belonging to McGee on his solo homer. Coleman, who had an RBI triple, and now Herr, who shot through the box, brought Clark home.
He'll probably be bunting. Whitey Herzog, because of his speed, a double play candidate, bunts him a lot.
He squares, he bunts, and it's foul.
So now Herzog, with one strike on LaValliere, has an option. He could, now that he knows he's got movement in the infield, charging at the corners. Dunston going to second, Sandberg to first. They're cheating in on the turf. Tommy Herr, although he at times has appeared to have slowed down in the field, has an excellent stolen base percentage this year. Hasn't been on that much. They may start him.
This time a fair ball, and the play is to first. So the Cardinals sacrifice successfully for the second time in as many tries today. And here comes Ozzie.
First night here, they're going to walk Ozzie. First night here with the man on third. Jim Fry walked two hitters, including Ozzie Smith, brought Worrell up. And after Lee Smith threw 8 consecutive balls, intentionally walking two, Whitey put the squeeze on. Worrell bunted through it, and they trapped the runner off third. That's the way things have been going for Herzog this year. They would rather pitch to the 8th hitter and Tudor the 9th hitter than to Smith, who swung a good bat all year.
Remember what Fry did to Herzog a couple of years ago. In a parallel situation, Whitey walked the bases loaded in order to get at Lee Smith, figuring that Fry would not yank his best reliever late in a game where he had a 1-run lead. Bases were loaded with 2 outs. Durham was the runner at third after 2 intentional walks, and Durham stole home. So now it's Herr at second, Smith at first, 1 out, and a run home in the bottom of the 7th as Pendleton steps up. He's singled and grounded out. Could be 2 for 2, but Durham robbed him with a good play in the 5th inning.
Ozzie Smith was not looking at a sign from third. He was looking at Herr at second. And if Herr thinks he can get a jump, because they're giving him a lot of room at second base, he will give some kind of sign to Ozzie. Look where Ozzie's looking, not at the third base coach, Nick Leyva. If Herr thinks he can go, he'll give him a thumbs up or whatever sign, and Ozzie will follow him. Watch the lead runner.
Third ball puts Pendleton in an 0-2 hole.
Whitey has found, with the great speed he's had over the last couple of years, over 300 bases stolen last season. There's Tudor on deck. He's had to play unorthodox baseball at times. Stay out of double plays, move base runners.
Back through the middle, but Dunston is there to step on second. Unload a cannon shot to Durham, who manages to stay on the bag. So the Cardinals settle for 1 and a 3-2 lead after 7.
42,151 on a great Saturday for baseball. See Pendleton, and perhaps the deflection off the glove of Rick Sutcliffe slowed it down enough for Dunston to turn it into a double play. Nice play by Leon Durham, who somehow on a high and wide throw kept his foot on the bag, and a good call by Dutch Rennert. He waited till the foot was there before he made the call.
Jody Davis leads it off at the top of the 8th and fouls one back.
Sutcliffe has pitched an outstanding game, but it looks like he's going to be gone unless Davis or Demir hit a home run, tie it up.
Center field, Willie McGee. 1 out.
Well, Rick Sutcliffe, though, has given his fans from Kansas City a show. Give him a quality start if he leaves. He's got his softball type team here, the Sluggers in Kansas City, with their wives. Got a couple of bus loads. And another TV sponsors, that Mark Harmon, the actor, managers out in the West Coast. Somewhere in that section, there's a bundle of them with their Sluggers t-shirts on. They said they've got one for you if you want it. Double extra large. These softball players are big guys.
Has something to do with the favored refreshment on such an outing. Dernier's double, his last time up, was only, as you see, the second hit of his career against Tudor.
Nobody's come out in the on-deck circle yet. George Fraser came down with his jacket on this sweltering day. From the bullpen, Lopes, Say, Lake hit from the right side as a switch hitter Mumphrey. So it's illegal. Davey Lopes took batting practice today, and he was swinging the bat well. So apparently his back's okay. He's got the helmet on next to Yosh Kawano.
Ozzie floats back and takes the soft liner.
Ron Say apparently had a man gotten on Dernier. He was going to pinch hit Lopes because of his speed, less likely to be a double play candidate with nobody on. Say will take a couple of shots, which is difficult to do off Tudor when he runs that fastball away, and try and get into one and pull it.
Say is another one like Davis and Dernier who has not been successful against Tudor. There are his figures for this year.
Now, basically, Ron Say most of his career has liked the ball from the middle of the center of the plate in. Tudor owns the outside corner.
Strike one to Say, who was just 1 for 14 lifetime against Tudor.
Watch Bobby Dernier. He was a little bit upset, to say the least, when he got this bat broken. Right up the runway. A little more kindling wood. That guy can never start hitting and get his on-base percentage up. This offense for the Cubs will be very consistent. Playing very deeply in the outfield now with a 1-run ball game and 2 outs. You don't want anything hit over your head. They are way back in center and left, especially for Say. Cut the gaps off, prevent the extra base hit.
2-1 with 2 out and nobody on. Tudor 4 outs away from his 6th victory against 3 defeats.
Here's where Tudor's so good. Even behind in the count, power hitter like this, he's still going to probably stay away. Right there, but just missed it. He will not give in. He has such great confidence in his control. Now they're moving Van Slyke and McGee way over to left. The whole outfield shifted in this count. Situational defensive play. Dave Ricketts moves him to Pullmore for Say.
Ricketts, of course, one of Herzog's coaches, has been with the Cardinals for a long time, played with them briefly, coach under Red Shaindietz. So a 2-out walk to the pinch hitter Say, and now Terry Francona, the former Expo, comes in to run for him.
Running for Ron Say, number 16, Terry Francona.
Didn't he have one of his bad experiences right in this ballpark, Terry Francona?
Yeah, back in June of 1982, early in his career with the Expos, and he was one of baseball's best-looking young hitters. He ran into the left field wall and ripped his knee up. He's never been the same since. He has been effective from time to time in a reserve role, but he's never become the outstanding everyday player that everyone had reason to expect he would be prior to the injury.
Well, Jimmy Fry strapped off the bench. He's got Bosley. He needs him as a left-handed pinch hitter in case Farrell comes in. Scott Lopes, he'd like to keep him. Lake is a defensive catcher. Mumphrey with a bad back. So you end up pinch running a guy who really doesn't have speed anymore.
If you're just joining us, we're in the top half of the 8th. Bob Costas with Tony Kubek in St. Louis, where the Cards lead the Cubs 3-2.
You play the hand dealt with you, and perhaps Jimmy Fry is managing as hard or better than he did even the year they won the division. He's had to. Guys with off years. A lot of other things have happened. Age has crept up on this team. John Vukovic, was a batting instructor along with Billy Williams at home.
Dunston lofts one into right field, and Van Slyke is waiting to end the inning. Now runs, no hits, so walk and a man is left. 3-2 Cards.
We've had the pitching duel we expected, except now Ray Fontenot's come on, and everybody in the world, including me, are interested. How's the little one doing? 1 month old yesterday.
No, the little one is fine. It's the world's most over-publicized child. I've got him wearing disguises. I have him in a low-profile mode for the next 6-7 years. You know, the kid is entirely too much ink at this point.
A typical tired father speaking, folks. I'll tell you what, I saw Kirby Puckett 4 ball games in the last week and a half. He is more thrilled than you and Randy with the baby. I'm not kidding. First he ran up to me smiling.
Well, his middle name includes Kirby's first. Keith Michael Kirby Costas. He put Kirby's baseball card in his crib, so the kid will have his own personal baseball player when he's old enough to understand. 0-2 to Tudor.
Fontenot, who has that, always has had a good sinker ball, a slider. What he has learned to do to make him so much more effective is change speeds on it. He's no longer a one-speed pitcher. Hard slider, hard sinker. Pull the string on both pitches. And the hitter's a lot more to look at. That shows his improvement right there. Those numbers on the board. Popped up by Jeff Simon.
Jeff Simon, one of those working in the truck in St. Louis today, along with director Bucky Gunts, producer Ken Edmondson, up in the booth as always. Our right-hand man, Steve Horn, who's back in his hometown of St. Louis, where he is something of a legend. Coleman switches around to the right side against Fontenot. Single, tripled, and flied out. Shows the bunt, takes a strike.
He already had Chris Spire and Leon Durham in very tight. When you decoy bunt like that, the infielder running 5-6 steps, maybe only go back 3 or 4. And his range is really gone because you're always leaning on your toes, wanting to come forward. You can't go right and left.
Matthews, few steps back, and there's the second out.
Bob, I noticed this in spring training when we were down there, that Vince Coleman is a lot stronger than he was last. He's done a lot of weight training. His arms, and it was indicative, I think, earlier in the ball game. We got that base hit in the right field corner. He just drove that ball very, very hard, hitting the ball a lot harder now. He's not just a guy anymore who chops down and beats out balls. He's really propelling the ball much better than last year. And he's only learning to hit, let's face it.
McGee's homer got him even in the 6th, and they went ahead in the 7th on Clark's triple and her single. I thought it was funny last night when the rains began to fall. We were standing in the runway along with many of the Cardinal players, and they brought the automatic tarp machine out, started to roll it out onto the field, and you grabbed Coleman and said, wait a minute, get back out of the way, get back in the clubhouse.
He obliged, too.
The 1-1. 2-1 to McGee. Todd Worrell, the Cardinal closer, is getting ready in case Tudor can't finish it, although Tudor is working on a 2-hitter. Base hit for Willie McGee, an extra base hit. At least a double, maybe more. Willie is on his way to second. Willie is on his way to third, and he has a 2-out triple.
Is in gear. The Cardinals offense going to follow. Coleman's been hitting. Smith's been hitting.
Right fielder Andy Van Slyke.
He breaks stride when he hits second base. He still is one of the fastest. More from the left side and this side the right. But boy, he gets there in a hurry.
The Cardinals have hit 3 triples today. Coleman, McGee, and Clark. And Willie is now 2 for 4. He struck out his first 2 times, and since then he's homered and tripled. Van Slyke is 0 for 3.
Here's what Whitey was talking about with Van Slyke. With Clark to follow, his feeling is they will look over out of the corner of their eye, the pitchers and catcher and the opposing manager, and see Jack Clark in the on-deck circle. And for that reason, Van Slyke will get more of what he likes, and that is fastballs.
Tap toward first. Durham has it, steps on the bag, and Tudor will have to work with just a one-run lead in the ninth. Cameraman Ken Harvey working hard and sweating it out alongside the Cub dugout. Another member of our crew, a usual member, Jack Samsell, videotape operator, is hospitalized back in his hometown of Chicago, probably watching the game this afternoon. Get well soon, Jack. The Cardinals had a stretch this year, incredibly, where they won only 1 of 15 starts by Tudor and Cox. Now, those two won 39 between them last year. 21 for Tudor and 18 for Cox, and yet in 15 consecutive starts by the two of them, the Cardinals emerged with only 1 victory.
Tudor will probably try and make these 3 hitters who can tie it up with one swing. Matthews, Sandberg, Moore hit to the big part of the ballpark. Playing very deeply in the outfield, not really guarding the lines at the corners. Whitey Herzog, one who does not believe in that theory completely. You see Pendleton and Clark are off the line. One of the reasons is this guy's got such good control, he's not going to give him anything to pull.
2-1 to Matthews, who's 0 for 2 with a walk. He walked ahead of Sandberg's homer in the 4th.
Well, he was such a key 2 years ago when he took all those bases on balls, setting up a lot of innings for Moreland and some of the other players.
3-1. We've mentioned this before in '84 as Worrell continues to heat up. It shouldn't take long on a day like this. In '84, 6 of the 8 Cub regulars had 80 or more RBIs. They might have caught lightning in a bottle for that one season. If they could have kept the cork on that bottle just one more day, they would have been in the World Series.
He still ran it away. Matthews saying, okay, now you've got to come to me. Tudor refused. He came up with a little extra, perhaps the hardest fastball he's thrown.
3-2 pitch.
Change
Walk missed. So the tying run is on. Let's see if we get a runner for Matthews.
Well, which you don't have a whole lot.
Yeah, here comes Davy Lopes.
Davy Lopes. The outfield will stay very, very deep.
Herzog notes the change. Exit Matthews, enter Lopes.
He knows that only Bosley, Lake, and an ailing Mumphrey apparently with the back left on Jimmy Fry's bench.